Tell us, what distinguishes you from the other candidates? Pedro Nava.
Thank you for that opportunity to speak with you today. The single most important distinction between me and the rest of the candidates is I've made a commitment to never run for governor. Because the only job I want is to be the people's lawyer for the state of California. And never for 1 second will I be distracted by future ambition or the desire for future office. This is the only job that I want. I want to be your lawyer.
I want you to sound off on the positives or the negatives of Arizona's SB 1070. Mr. Nava.
Yeah, the question was the positives and negatives. If you're trying to find a positive in the Arizona law, the only thing that's positive is that it has once again persuaded Latinos that there's no room for them in the Republican Party. The negative is that it victimizes people who are the most vulnerable. I'm a former deputy district attorney. You have to have the cooperation of people in the community to come forward and report crime. How do you think someone would feel if a witness to a crime was deported and justice was then denied?
What should California do about illegal immigration? Mr. Nava.
I think of all of the candidates here, I'm the only immigrant. I was born in Mexico, and my father came to this country as an undocumented, with a strong back, big dreams, and no money. Met my mother, married, returned to Mexico. I was born there. My father had a path to citizenship. He became a citizen, and the first thing he did after he became a citizen is he voted for Ronald Reagan. So I tell my Republican friends, lighten up a little bit. We have to work with our congressional delegation to ensure that there is a path to citizenship.
There are over 700 people on California's death row, yet this state has executed only 13 people in the last 24 years. When our worst offenders receive the death penalty, they live in a private room, separated from the general population, basically live out their sentence, never receiving the penalty that they've been assigned. It's extremely expensive. The system, in most people's point of view, is not working as intended. So how do we fix this? Mr. Nava?
I agree with Mr. Liu. Part of the problem is that we're schizophrenic about the death penalty. We like to see it imposed, but we don't like to see it carried out. And part of the reason why we have to do a better job at the defense of those crimes, as well the defense in court, provide adequate counsel, ensure the Constitution has been satisfied. If you have DNA evidence, it must be tested. And you can't have an attorney who falls asleep during the course of the trial. That's not adequate counsel. And then on the appeals, we do have to invest more money so that the appeals are done appropriately.
The state of California has a ballot measure up for a vote in November that seeks to legalize marijuana. What if it is passed? How would you handle it as Attorney General? Let's begin with Mr. Nava.
Well, I've already expressed my personal opinion with respect to legalization, but that's a separate issue in my capacity as your Attorney General. And in my capacity as Attorney General, there doesn't seem to be anything unconstitutional about that particular initiative, unlike Yes on 8, which I would not have defended. And in fact, I would have won that case had I been the AG. And so, in your capacity as Attorney General, respecting the Constitution, you'd have to defend the law.
There are reports that gangs in California, particularly near the border of San Diego, in cities like San Diego and L.A., are becoming more sophisticated in the way that they do business and may even be working with the cartels south of the border, helping them to distribute drugs and gangs. How can you, as California Attorney General, fight this problem? Mr. Nava.
When I was in Fresno County as a deputy district attorney, I was responsible for the targeted narcotics program. Vertical prosecution starting from the time an individual was a suspect, search warrant, arrest warrant, preliminary hearing, trial, sentencing, and then go stand on the corner and wave bye-bye as the bus takes them away. You have to treat gangs as though they were the equivalent of America's Al-Qaeda. You have to pursue them. You have to wipe them out. You have to treat them as though they were vermin, because they are. Because they will infect your communities and they will suck the life out of the places where you live and love. So, of course, you have to work with young people to help them, bring them along. But then the bad guys, you just got to beat them up.
Next question is something that's in the news in the last few days. When our kids are chronically truant from school, should their parents be punished or even prosecuted? Mr. Nava.
I agree with Ted. It was some years ago. I was at a donut shop, and there was a young man behind the counter asked me, ¿Qué es su trabajo? What is your job? So I, sort of stood up straight, and I said, Soy abogado. I'm a lawyer. He just looked at me and he said, ¿Qué es su otro trabajo? What's your other job? So as we talk about truancy and parents and accountability, let's keep in mind that for low-income families, you may have a mother and a father both working 2 jobs. And you may have a 13-year-old sister who's responsible for all the kids in the house. So before we start thinking about slamming people up in jail, let's offer them some support.
Next question. In today's desperate budget times, how do you feel about early release of prisoners? Mr. Nava.
I voted against the early release provisions that were in front of the legislature last year because it wasn't honest. Many of you heard that we were talking about nonviolent, non-serious offenses. Well, let me give you an example of some of those. Burning a cross on an African-American's lawn, painting a swastika on a garage door of the home of a Jewish person, driving while under the influence of alcohol resulting in death or injury, using children to obtain marijuana, pimping and pandering. That doesn't satisfy my definition of non-serious nonviolent. So as soon as we can use the English language the right way, maybe we'll get an answer.
This question. Various industries in California are or can be especially harmful to our citizens' health, such as oil refineries, shipping. What role should the Attorney General play in prosecuting these businesses? Mr. Nava.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to find anybody who wasn't a co-author of AB 32. I was also. But I've also served for 8 years on the California Coastal Commission, protecting the coast, where I received the highest resource vote of any of the members of the Coastal Commission for the entire time that I was there. In addition to that, I've authored legislation that for the first time gives DOGGR the power to conduct unannounced inspections on oil refineries and oil rigs and other facilities. I also led the fight in the legislature to kill the governor's proposal to open up the California coastline to new drilling. That's why you should vote for Pedro.
Our current California Attorney General, Jerry Brown, wrote last year, quote, I believe the court should strike down Prop 8 because it unconstitutionally discriminates against same-sex couples and deprives them of the fundamental right to marry, unquote. Do you agree or disagree with this statement, and why? Mr. Nava.
Yeah, I agree with what the Attorney General said. I contributed money to the No on 8. I campaigned No on 8, and I voted No on 8. And my sense of it is no one can tell you who to fall in love with. And if you, as a gay person, want to get married so you can experience the same joy that I have each and every day of my marriage, just like every one of you have, unbounded, relentless glee and happiness and joy. And more power to you.
If more budget cuts come and you have to cut further, what gives you the qualifications to handle the task properly? Mr. Nava.
I've been a partner in a law firm, managed my own law firm as well, and I've been a member of the legislature. Chairman of the Assembly Committee on Transportation, Banking and Finance, and now Environmental Safety and Toxics. And one of the things that you learn is that you can rely on people within your organizations for ideas in order to streamline the applications and the work that you do. But the other part of it that is vitally important, as the Attorney General, you've got to spend some time in the Capitol. You've got to fight for your budget. You have to fight for your department so that you can restore them. I'd do that.
Believe it or not, we've basically come to the conclusion of this debate, so we have set aside some time for our candidates to do a closing remark. They also will be 30 seconds. The order has been predetermined. Mr. Nava?
What I bring to this office is a recollection of what my father's dream and my parents' dream for me was. And that was that someday I'd have a job where I'd put a white shirt on in the morning, go to work, and come back, and it would still be the same color. Because for them, that meant I was working with my head and not my hands. But I had to remind them that it was the people who work with their hands who built this country, who made it wealthy and who made it prosperous. And their contribution is as important as any executive anywhere. The other promise that I make to you is that I will not run for governor ever. And the reason why that is important is because I never have to spend a moment as your Attorney General figuring out how I'm going to raise $40 million for the next office. My ambition is just this office as your attorney.